Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going through a Category 3 ILS Autoland situation here. We're sitting at Seattle Tacoma International. That's Kilo Sierra Echo Alpha is the identifier for the airport. This airport is known for extremely low visibility, especially in the fall. You get low temperature, dew point spreads, and it's known for having very minimal visibility. So, thought it'd be a good day to do a video on how we properly set up and execute an Autoland in the Airbus A320. I'll go ahead and I've got the box programmed right now. I just have us on a very simple flight plan. We're going to take off, be vectored out, and we're going to vector ourselves in for the ILS, and we'll work through all the approach procedures. One thing here is I do need to get the correct altimeter setting. Looks like the weather here is 2967. And sky conditions 50 feet overcast, RVR 300, wind calm. So this is the absolute minimum approach when we come back in. Alright, brakes released. And let's get out of here. Manflex, SRS, runway, auto thrust is blue. .80 knots, thrust set. V1, rotate. Positive rate, gear up. And since we are IMC, we'll just go ahead and engage the autopilot right here. Alright, autopilot 1, we're on the departure. I believe I'm doing the Mountain 8 departure, just something to get us airborne here, and set up for a video back in. Okay, lever climb, thrust climb, auto thrust is now active. You can see we're breaking out of the tops now of the overcast layer. Very common for this part of the country here in the US. Actually, I've flown into this airport several times where you could actually see the control tower sticking up through the fog layer. But when you get down on the ground, it's 0-0. Alright, here comes our flap speed, flaps up. And after takeoff checklist. This is one of those scenarios where I really wish, oh, I got speed brake out there. There we go. That the terrain mode was modeled out further, like it should be. Here you see 80 miles, and just get a little annoying magenta box, but we'll deal with it. Alright, gear is up, flaps retracted, speed brakes are disarmed, and packs, everything looks normal. So we're going to just go ahead and simulate that, hey, we've had an issue, maybe there's an emergency, there's a passenger that's really ill, we need to get back on the ground. We're going to do an approach right back into Seattle. So let's go ahead and start setting up for the approach. Remember from our last video that I did, we talked about the top hat. It's the same situation here. I've got the 1/6 center ILS selected. Enter destination data. Yep, that's what we're doing. I've got the ILS 1/6 center approach selected, and that's going to start. This is just some arrival. We're not going to fly all those fixes. The approach starts here at Anvil. We have Anvil as our initial approach fix with the CAT III. So that's in the box, just like you'd load any other approach. You also want to make sure you go through your missed approach procedures. That's doing, just in case you're operating this type of visibility, this type of scenario, the chance of a go-around are a little bit more significant. This was flashing at me to go standard because I guess I went above 5,000 feet or whatever the default was. I didn't change it to 18,000. So let's go ahead and push it back in. 2967. Alright, so the flight plan's in there. Our RadNav. We're actually going to hard tune the Seattle VOR. You can see it was auto-tuned, but I don't want it to switch. I want to maintain this distance and DME from Seattle at all times on this approach. I don't want it to switch over, if we fly the mist or something. I want to know where I am from Seattle, so I'm going to go ahead and hard tune that. Seattle 1/6 center. GPS is primary, nav accuracy high. Performance data. Let's go ahead and set that up. We know it's going to be 29.67. When you're doing a approach category 3, category 2, it is extremely important that you have the most up-to-date, accurate weather information at your arrival airport. The temperature down there was, I believe it was 5C, and the wind was calm. Alright, now this is where it's going to start to change. For category 3, instead of putting in the MDA, or the minimum descent altitude, for an approach, we're going to put in a decision height. Now if you look at your approach plate, whether you're using Jeppesen or AirNav or SimBrief, whatever you use to get your approaches, on the category 3 approach, you're going to notice that for 1/6 center straight in landing, the published minimum is in RA. That means radar altimeter. And on this approach, it says radar altimeter of 126. So we're going to put that in the DH. We're going to land config full. Next phase. That looks good. Go round speeds are set. Now, when we would send for, in a real airplane, we have our ATSU, we send for our performance data and numbers. We actually have to change the setting in there, say, hey, we're going to be doing a CAT III, and that actually adjusts the performance data a little bit for the category 3 approach. Alright, so right now our box is programmed. Let's go ahead and we're going to just give ourselves a self vector here. So we're going to pull heading. I'm playing ATC and pilot here. Excuse me. Don't want to run into any mountains either. We'll come around to 010 for now. Okay, if you look at our ND now, we've got all kinds of stuff going on here. We've got lines all over the place. So when you're no longer on an arrival, let's say air traffic control is going to say, hey, we're going to vector you for the approach. You no longer need the arrival. We do what's called shooting a line. So to shoot a line, we're going to go to our whatever fix you want to shoot the line off of. For this approach, we know we're going to start at Anvil. So it's a direct function. We're going to hit the direct key, which is DIR, scroll down to Anvil, which is the beginning of our approach phase. There it is. Now we know we've got a couple of options here. It's distance 21 miles, direct. We can either go direct to Anvil, but you can see this yellow amber, or this amber line here. We don't want to go direct to Anvil. We want to draw an extended center line off of Anvil. So we go ahead and press radial in 344, which is the reciprocal to our final approach fix. Our final approach course is 164. We flip that around, we've come up with 344. So we know that's correct. Insert. And now, no nav intercept, I'm aware of that. If you look, it might be a little hard to see at this kind of where we are position-wise. But now we have a nice extended center line off of anvil. That helps keep our ND nice and clean. We like to have our ND clean. We don't want excess information or excess lines drawn around there, making it confusing. We'll go ahead and simulate air traffic control. Says flight factor 320, descend and maintain 4,000. Expect vectors ILS CAT III to 16 center. The thrust idle, open descent, and it's this QNH keeps flashing at me because the transition altitude was set at 5,000, which it defaults to that in the flight factor Airbus. In the North America, it should be 18, so I apologize. It's just so we're gonna fix that maybe. There we go. Should no. Check QFE, huh? Interesting. I'm not sure what's going on with that now. 2967, that should be correct. Alright. We're descending now, 4,000 feet, speed alt star. So flight factor 320, let's go ahead and reduce speed now to 210 knots. One thing on a CAT III, or any type of ILS approach in general, you want to make sure you are established well ahead of the aircraft. You don't want to be behind the airplane, especially imperative on an Autoland situation. Now for Autoland, we're going to have both flight directors engaged. We're going to have both LS buttons on, so we'll go ahead and get those on right now. When we get cleared for the approach, we're going to activate both autopilots. We're going to get a CAT III dual, autopilot 1 and 2, and both flight directors. Let's go ahead and set the brakes to medium braking. You can see our speed now is decreasing. I keep coming to these McDo's and clearing out the scratch pad. You might be seeing me do that in the video. So it's very important, very good technique as a pilot to have this box right here cleared out. This is reference to as a scratch pad. You never want to be typing stuff around and then have stuff left over here. Always keep your scratch pad clean. Don't ever leave the clear button up on there, because if you're going around and I need to select a fix, now you just cleared out a fix. Alright, so make sure your scratch pad is always clean when you're working around in the box here. Beautiful sunrise there, the mountains just poking through the fog layer. Now, if you look at our aircraft, we've got a nice little deck angle going on there. We can help the flight attendants with that. They don't like walking up and down a real steep incline like that. So let's go ahead and extend flaps 1. Alright, flaps 1. Anvil is at 3,200, so we're anticipating from air traffic control that he's going to get us lower. Our speed 210 on downwind. So flight factor 320. Descend and maintain 3,000. And turn left heading to, let's make it 310. So 310, 3,000 feet set. Alright, turning on to modified base lake here. We're going to start reducing speed to 180 knots. Flight factor 320, turn left heading 260. Left turn 260 for flight factor 320. And we'll make sure our lights are set. So ideally below 10,000, we got everything on here. This light is off, reminds us if we're cleared to land or cleared approach. Just as a little redundant backup. Now if you notice, we're sitting here at 180 knots. well below our flap 2 speed, but save fuel, right? We don't want to be putting flaps out 30 miles from the airport, even if we're slowed down. So as long as we're above green dot and we're above the VLS down here, we don't really need to be throwing out flaps just because we're below 200 knots. Our flap speed right now is 200, so in theory we could extend it at 190 knots, but keeping it up, just save a little gas. Especially doing Cat 3 approaches, you don't know, spacing gets messed up on the runway, or if, you know, an airplane landed ahead of you and doesn't clear the runway, so you might have to go around. On the approach itself, we're looking for a few key items to make sure that we are in Autoland at 350 feet radar altimeter. This is going to go ahead and change to land green. We want to make sure we see land green here. If we don't get a land annunciator, that means that we have to execute go around. Also, at about what's that? I think it's 50 feet RA, we should get flare. If you don't get a flare mode, we are instructed to initiate a go around and get ready to impact the runway anyway, because if you get no flare and you still execute a go around, the momentum of the aircraft is still going to bring the wheels down to the pavement, most likely. We actually practiced it in a simulator, and it is quite violent, but it's better than slamming into the ground without flaring. Alright, radio call now. It sounds something like flight factor 320, you're 10 miles from Anvil, turn left heading 220, maintain 3000, tel established on the localizer, cleared, ILS 16 center approach. So every time we hear cleared for the approach, here we go, approach mode arm, autopilot 2, 220 on the heading, we're cleared approach, we're going to move the nose light into the taxi position. Announce the FMA, we have Cat 3 dual capabilities, autopilot 1 and 2 is selected, decision height 126 feet RA, glide slope blue, lope blue.
100 above.
So now I've changed something here. To do a pure Cat 3 Autoland, we actually enter no in the DH box. So before I had 120, it was a 126. Depending on your carrier and what type of approach you're actually shooting, fail passive or fail operational, you will or will not have radar altimeter. Now, I'm sorry, not radar altimeter, a minimum decision height. I was planning to do this video as a Autoland from the beginning, so I made a mistake earlier. We should have no DH entered in the McDo for the approach phase. So when you're doing an Autoland, there is no DH, there is no minimum descent altitude. We're good to go all the way to the ground. So I apologize for that earlier. You would use that 126 or whatever your RA decision height is if you're doing a Cat 3 fail passive, a fail passive approach. So that'll be safe for a different video if you want. But right now we're doing a fail operational with no DH. Just wanted to clarify that there. I do apologize for the confusion. So Autoland, no DH. There is no go around. Or not no go around. There is no decision altitude. And it looks like we're joining the localizer. Lokestar. If you've been following my videos, you know the optimized energy approach management profile that we're looking for in the Airbus is flaps 2, 180 knots at 2,000 feet RA. So we are right on schedule now. Glide slope is blue, that means it is armed and ready to capture. Our missed approach altitude, should we have to execute a missed according to the chart, is it's an interesting approach. Or a missed approach procedure. It's at or below 2,000 for the first fix. So we're actually going to set 2,000 for the go-around altitude initially. There's glide slope star. That means we've captured the glide slope. We go ahead and set go around altitude, 2,000 feet blue, set. Beautiful Seattle behind us there. Got the Space Needle. Alright, 2,500 should have been enunciated. It's not. We're approaching 2,000 feet. Close enough. 2,000 foot. Push for managed speed. Landing gear down. And arm the speed brakes. Speed brakes are attached to the landing gear lever. You can see our doors are unlocking here. LGCIUs, the landing gear control computers. These are not representative of wheels. They're actually representative of a sensor from the landing gear computers. Alright. Let's go ahead and go flaps 3. Speed checks. Flaps 3. And approaching speed laps full. Beautiful texturing there on the leading edge. Alright, flaps full, landing checklist. Cabin crew advised, auto thrust, speed. ECAM memo, landing, all green. Landing check is complete. Flight factor 320, contact tower on, let's make it up, 122.03. It's not right, but let's just say it is. Okay, the contact tower. Flight factor 320, you're clear to land, runway 16 center. Clear to land, lights come on. We are fully automated at this point. Now we are monitoring very intently our FMA and the aircraft and the situation here. We are actually in icing conditions, so we're going to go ahead and turn on the engine ice. We're going to leave the wing heats off. I'm not seeing any ice accumulate there on the accumulator. We're looking for land green. That is our next cue. Here's our land green enunciator. You can see our pitch limiter is now in landing phase. We've got it limited to 12 degrees. All right, so now we're looking for flare.
200. 100. 50, 40, 30,
There's our flare
20,
mode.
10, retard.
We've got rollout enunciator. There's touchdown. Reverse thrust, green. Spoilers, reverse thrust. And we are, auto brakes are decelling. Approaching 70 knots. Reversers come to idle. Now, something very important. When you go over to manual brakes, we need to disconnect the autopilot. Because if you attempt to steer off the runway here, it clicks off in this sim. That's inaccurate. In the real aircraft, it will actually keep you on the center line until you disengage the autopilot. So it's very important that you disconnect the autopilot before engaging the tiller and trying to exit off the runway. Alright, so we've landed now on 16 center. We have to go all the way to Papa, which has the low visibility taxi lights. You can see here it is coming up here in front of us. We've got the green lead-off lights. Anytime your operations are below certain RVR parameters, there are different charts that you have to look at for taxiing. So right now I'm looking at a chart that's used in RVR less than 600. It's called the SMIGS. And this little ECAM there should be there. Alright, so clearing the runway at a low visibility like this, it's very important that you make sure your aircraft actually clears the entire runway. We also have another parallel runway we need to stop in front of here, so we'll go ahead and bring the aircraft to a stop. Set the parking brake. Brake set. Where's our pressure? There it is. Alright, now we can go ahead and do our after landing checklist. So the strobes come off. Oops, our beacon stays on, wings off. Everything else comes off here. We'll leave the taxi light. Oh, that stays off. There we go. And we no longer need the ice on the ground. Disarm. Flaps up. This goes into standby mode. Flight director's LS push buttons off. And depending on your company, we'll prime the APU, get it ready to go. Alright, we got taxi clearance across 16 center. Now taxiing around in very low visibility like this, you're going to have different taxi instructions. You're going to actually have, you know, low visibility taxi routes that are published on a chart. And I'll see if I can get some of these charts overlaid in this video here, so you can see what I'm looking at. But basically we're turning left onto Papa now if you're following some kind of chart, you're following along. I'm actually on the Papa taxiway right now, crossing 16 left, and then we're going to turn left again on, I believe it's Bravo. And this is very accurate visibility simulation here. Oops. A little stutter there in my game. Some of you guys wonder, why is my flight delayed? Why is my flight delayed? It's because even though the weather's not necessarily bad, when the visibility drops below 600, things really slow down. You make a wrong turn, you know, people can get killed. So everything slows down up front during low visibility conditions. And our flap open is eliminated. Let's go ahead and get the APU cranking. And we'll say our gate is off here to the right. This would all be dependent, of course, of where you're flying, what airline you're flying to, what airline you're flying on, I should say. And you can see the tails just coming through the fog there. That's pretty realistic, pretty intimidating when you're taxiing a multi-million-dollar jet around too. You don't want to ruin anybody's day, or yours for that matter. Alright, brakes set. Taxi light off. Seatbelt signs off. APU's available. Engine's coming down. And that will do it for today's video, guys. I hope I didn't confuse too many of you with that performance MDA, a DH, and all those things. Just remember, if you're doing a CAT III Autoland, fail operational, there is no DH. You put no in the DH box. If you're doing maybe a CAT II or a fail passive approach, then you're going to use a decision height. But for strictly Autoland, everything's working. We're going no DH. We got a one-way ticket to terra firma. Thanks again, guys. Catch you on the next video.